I think we stood for innovation, and also we were the Genesis story. So you always have a hallowed position when you're the first.
Yeah. You know, the history of video games is oftentimes the early days of the history of Atari.
Yeah, I mean, we had no money, no factories, no market presence. The only thing we had was creativity. You know?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the beauty and the truth with Atari is that I love this and I enjoy it. What do you think Atari's role is, not just in video games, but in popular culture today?
I believe that it succeeded because of creativity. And so I think it has some chops there, you know what I mean? And so I think that we have a lot of power in the Atari legacy and brand that can really propel us forward.
Yeah.
And when we chose the Fuji logo, I wanted it to be an upward swoosh. It's a collective, it's aspirational. And so right now, it would be good to take the innovation legacy and push it forward into the future.
That's right, exactly.
Atari was founded in 1972 by a 26-year-old 6'4" research engineer for Ampex named Nolan K. Bushnell.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Memory Card, the History of Video Games podcast edition. This series is all about digging deep into video game history. That includes obviously the games, but also how they were made, the influential people, and all kinds of aspects, you know, like events, things like that we get into video game history, and we do it in a chronological sense. So we started at the very beginning with the first episode, and in this episode we're talking about the early days of Atari. So pre-Atari 2600 pretty much is where we're kind of focusing in on, because this is when Atari really starts to get moving. And there are some fantastic interviews, and there's some great footage out there, historical footage that the audio was playing at the beginning of this episode, about Nolan Bushnell, who was interviewing with IGN for the 50th anniversary, which was a couple years ago, I believe, when there came out a collection. It was like Atari 50 collection. I actually have it on my shelf behind me, a physical copy of it for the PS5. But they did a whole thing of interviews, and it was just a huge celebration because Atari obviously has a huge legacy in the video game space and video game history. So yeah, that's what we're talking about today, is the early history of Atari. I did want to note that I know I'm late, and I'm not really going to give excuses or go over my whole deal like I have in previous episodes, but I'm late on getting this out, so, well, we're just going to move on. Anyway, I did want to shout out somebody on YouTube who was listening to the podcast version on YouTube, and they are kind of doing a work in progress thing where they kind of give like notes and things like that on each episode. And I don't see their comment anymore, but I believe they said I mispronounced the cathode ray tube. I probably mispronounced it again. I probably will always mispronounce things like that. But Yeah, so it's kind of cool. They are kind of doing some like summary notes about each episode. It's D20 Musics is doing kind of like these notes, and so I thought it was kind of cool. It's kind of like first someone comments on the podcast version at least. I have gotten comments on the video version of the series, but on the podcast version, that was kind of the first thing. Like feedback and stuff. And one thing that I did see was that like they were having issues with the audio because I was quiet. And I do want to say I think my weaknesses with doing this kind of thing is definitely audio. That's probably something I'm always going to struggle with. I'm not very well versed in audio. Video, I think I'm okay. I seem to always get better at doing video. And then writing, I always seem to be doing better, like with my scripts and stuff. But audio, man, that is always going to be a problem for me. So, work in progress on that. Anyway, okay. Let's talk about Atari. Let's get into it. And kind of behind the scenes, real quick, here is when I do the podcast version, I'm basically reading the same script that I do for the video. So it's kind of janky at parts because it's just my video script that I read off of. That they're kind of like my notes for the podcast, and then I have a more casual approach with the podcast because that's kind of what people want in a podcast. So some behind the scenes tidbit there. Whatever. Moving on. My brain doesn't want to work. But yeah, so the story for Atari begins we'll start with Nolan Bushnell. And he was born in Clearfield, Utah in 1943. And really little did anyone know that he would later be referred to as the father of video games. He's also referred to as the godfather of electronic gaming, and he has a lot of nicknames throughout history. And you may recall we did talk about Bushnell in a previous episode, in the Computer Space episode, because he made Computer Space. And I had a complete brain fart there. Sorry. Yeah, he was in the Computer Space episode. But today we're talking about how he started the legendary company of Atari. And so before we jump too far ahead, we need to go back to kind of Bushnell's, like what was leading up to Computer Space and Atari. So he graduated with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Utah College of Engineering, this is according to PBS's Who Made America. So he was a tinkerer, and he played with electronic ignition systems and a roller skate mounted liquid fuel rocket in his garage. Probably something you shouldn't try at home, especially with the word ignition there, and liquid fuel. I imagine that's a bad recipe. That's a recipe for a disaster right there. And so this part is kind of where we get to some familiar territory. So Bushnell began his career at Lagoon Amusement Park near Salt Lake City. And while there, he worked on arcade electromechanical games. And I think we touched on those in the first episode very briefly, because if you want to be technical, they're not video games as much as like the other things that we've talked about. They're mechanical games, kind of like pinball machines. Like, I don't really count pinball machines as video games. They're kind of like mechanical games. But anyway, so while he was there, he was... Oh, wait, sorry. I skipped ahead of my notes here. So after he graduated in 1968, he found himself at Stanford University, which is also a place that we've talked about multiple times. It seems like that kind of the pinnacle of the rise of video games, pretty much. And while there, he was an engineering research associate at Ampex Corporation, which Ampex was kind of a specialized company with electronic technology. So the few things that I could find around the beginning part of the company's time was magnetic recording and videotapes and kind of things like that. So it was while at Ampex, Bushnell met a man named Ted Dabney. And so we'll kind of get into Ted's history here. So he was born in San Francisco in 1937, which he stated he was born 12 days before the Golden Gate Bridge. He said in an interview with the Computer History Museum that he was not very good academically, so he went to trade school. Excuse me. Eventually, he would begin studying analytic geometry. He then worked for the Division of Highways and was a surveyor for the Bridge Department and helped build the freeway system from the Bay Bridge up to Hospital Cove. And I think he described it as the area would be 8th and Bryant Harrison Street. I'm not familiar with the San Francisco layout, so I'm not quite sure if that's accurate or not. And by today's standards, that's just what I've got from my research. Eventually, Ted joined the Marine Corps in 1958. It was in the Marine Corps that he signed up for an electronics course and went to Treasure Island. He would then go to San Diego for another electronics course by Collins. When he got out of the Marine Corps, Ted was accepted to San Francisco State, but stated he couldn't afford it. That's when he began working with Bank of America. Eventually, Ted wound up working for Hewlett-Packard, but was not there for long before going to Ampex, where he worked on Ampex's military products. Eventually, he would go on to a new division of Ampex called Videophile. After several years with Ampex, eventually Nolan Bushnell was hired in. The two would become close friends and eventually set up the company Syzygy. And in 1971, the game Computer Space was born. And as we kind of talked about in that episode about Computer Space, it was a financial failure. It just did not do well. And I think that was mostly because of the technology limitations and what they could do with that. But in 1972, the two formed together to create the company known as Atari. Ba-da! Atari is here! Atari has arrived. In our little chronological view of video game history, Atari has poofed into existence. The famous Atari. So the company name was chosen because of Bushnell's love of the Japanese game Go. And what research I found didn't really explain too much. I guess Atari is the way you say go in Japanese. You know what? That is a live Google question right now. Let's see. I'm going to make a live test of this theory because, well, that doesn't say. Okay, hold on. Here we go. We'll figure this out. No, that is not what that means. Okay. Well, I don't know. That's what the research says. So, okay, well, maybe it has something to do with the game that Atari, the word Atari is used or something. Anyway, So shortly after Atari was founded, he began working on the next video game called Pong. And feel free to, your research gurus out there, like, here, let's see. Why was Atari called Atari? Let's see here. So according to this, it was used in the game Go, meaning to hit a target or check, which reflects the company's founder's interest in the game. There you go. So it was within the game. That's I could have used that in the video, whatever. You live and learn, as the famous Sonic Adventure 2 song says. So shortly after Atari was founded, he began working on the next video game called Pong. Now, we will not dive too much into Pong since we will cover it in the next, or not the next episode. We'll cover it in a later episode. So we will just say that Pong was a commercial success and really launched Atari. Pong is going to have its own episode. It's a huge foundation in video game history, so it deserves its own spot. So later that same year, one of the first home video game consoles would be launched called Atari Pong. Atari would also release the Atari Video Pinball Series consoles, the Atari Stunt Cycle home console for racing games, the handheld version of Touch Me in 1978, and several computers including the Atari 400 and the Atari 800 in the 1970s. So, I have a couple of short clips that I wanted to play that I did in the video version of this episode. It's a promotional thing for the Atari 400, and I'm going to only play the entertainment section. And then a short, kind of like a news thing about the Atari 800, or a commercial. I forget which one. But yeah, about the Atari 800. So let me play those clips real quick.
Come on, bring it up again.
Now, picture, if you will, your family enjoying Star Raiders right at home on me, your friendly, adaptable, altogether charming Atari 400 computer system.
Oh, here we go. All right. All right, here we go. Here comes another one. Yeah, got it. All right.
Ow!
Yeah.
Fun, huh? Here's what you get in the entertainer kit. Joysticks and 2 dynamite computer games. This one kit opens up the world of famous Atari games to your family. Asteroids, Missile Command, Space Invaders, Computer Chess, Basketball, and, well, the list goes on. So, there you have it. The incredible Atari 400 computer system. Starring
When it comes to home computers, the Atari home computer gets high grades.
I use an Atari at home, and I use it for word processing and to teach myself other programming languages.
Well, the graphics are probably some of the best you can find.
The Atari 800 computer not only allows you to play games, it also allows you to learn math and history.
Only one computer lets you enjoy this library of over 2,000 enlightening and entertaining programs. Atari home computers.
The more you learn, the more you can program, and there's just no end to it.
I just love the comment from the kid about the graphics. Like, you can't imagine how much better graphics would get. And not that much time after, well, especially after the Atari 800 came out. Like, graphics were just going to get a little bit better, you know. But, yeah, so... so Pong launched so much so that Bushnell and Dabney could no longer financially keep up with it. So the company was sold to Warner Communications for an estimated $28 million in 1976. That does not account for inflation. I don't know. Well, here we go. No, my curiosity's been spiked. 1976. Oops. I don't know what I pressed, but my keyboard just went crazy. Adjusted for inflation. Let's see. let's see if what we got here. I'll just use this, I guess. 28. I think I did this right. Okay. So that would be about 159 million, or 160 million if you want to round up in today's standards. That's not bad. I don't know what that is equivalent to with what other companies are valued at currently, but point being, that's a lot of money in today's money. Anyway, so a year after the company was sold to Warner, the Atari video computer system, which was later named the 2600, was launched. And the legacy of that console tells itself. We will get to that console much down the line, but eventually we will. So continuing to talk about early days of Atari. So in 1978, Atari's revenue was in the stars. And Bushnell set his sights towards creating Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah, he created Chuck E. Cheese Pizza. Or at the time it was like Chuck E. Cheese Pizza. Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater. That is a mouthful. No wonder they changed the name. So the restaurant chain combined his love of pizza parlors and arcade games. What started out as 16 locations in 1978 grew to 115 in 1979. And obviously has blown up to the franchise that it is today. However, in 1984, Bushnell had to resign after the company exceeded financial stability. And this is according to History Tools. So for Ted, he had left his relationship with Bushnell in 1973, having his shares bought out. He would go on to work at various programming and engineering jobs and ran a grocery store in the 90s, according to NPR. Still, the relationship was brought back when Chuck E. Cheese was starting to get its footing. Ted designed the early system to notify customers when their food was ready at the restaurant. But in 2018, Ted Dabney did die of cancer at the age of 81. And Bushnell did respond. He tweeted on the Saturday after Dabney's death, Ted was my partner, co-founder, fellow dreamer, and friend. I'll always cherish the time we spent together. So Bushnell is still alive today at the age of 82. A few years ago, Atari, well, we already kind of talked about this. Again, this is me rereading the script. But yeah, Bushnell is still alive today at the age of 82. And we showcased him talking about Atari at the beginning of this show. So that's kind of where the early legacy of Atari kind of ends for us when we're in this episode. But I mean, it goes without saying that as we continue this series, we're going to be touching on Atari a lot through their games and their consoles. Even today, Atari remains as a company that primarily helps those that are nostalgic about retro video games. They recently joined forces with Playmagy to continue help with the Polymega, and there's a new module that is supposed to come out that will attach to the base unit of the Polymega that will allow people to play their 2600 and 7800 games, so they can install their games on there and play them. And that's supposed to come out relatively soon. Atari also helps distribute games, so like they're helping distribute Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, which is also coming out soon. the physical editions of those, and I think the digital editions of those too. But if you're a collector like me, you want to get the physical copies, so that's mostly what I look at. They also have new consoles that can play old Atari games, like the Atari 2600 and 7800 Plus, and the Atari 400 Mini that use HDMI, and they can play the games. And the 400 Mini can play ROMs of 5200 games, if you did not know that. Because what I've always noticed is the 5200 kind of gets left behind. And I'm somewhat of a complete preservationist, I guess is the way you'd word. Like, I want to be able to play. I want to have the chance to play every single version, like of every console ever made. Like, that's my dream. Whether it's down to Virtual Boy or the 5200. Like, I know the 5200 is kind of like obsolete. Like, why would you want to play it? But like, I don't know. I want to experience some of those games for myself. So I was really excited when the 400 Mini came out. So with releases like those, and they're also releasing soon the Game Station Go, which is a portable Atari console. It looks quite good, but it's outside of my price range. But it's very clear that Atari is signifying that they are not going anywhere, and they will remain a beacon for nostalgic gamers to always go back and find more of what they loved. I really like Atari as a company right now. They have so many cool products, like the, I guess what would you call the new consoles? Like, they're not refurbished. It's not, they're like a remake in a way, I guess. Like updated, I guess is what you would say. Like, I have a 2600 Plus myself, and I don't play it often. And that's what a lot of people criticize, like people who strive for Atari things. It's like, oh, well, you're not going to play Atari games that often. I'm like, no, but there's going to be a night once in a while where I'm going to, like, I want to run through my Atari collection. You know, I want to play some Asteroids. I want to play some Space Invaders. I want to try and beat my personal high score. And I want to do that. And yeah, and then I have the console there to do it. And it's much easier than the older version to get up and to set up and stuff with HDMI. So yeah, I really appreciate Atari. I love Atari. Glad I can finally talk about at least the beginnings of Atari. We touched on some of the consoles. Obviously, we're going to get to the 2600 and Pong and some of the other games that they made later. But yeah, I mean, Atari is wonderful, man. I have so much respect for Atari. So before we get to sources, let's tease the next episode. So the next episode, the video version is going to come out this weekend. It is about the first Magnavox Odyssey, not the second. There's two. We're talking about the very first one, and also the beginning history of Magnavox getting into video games. But we're going to talk about the first Odyssey console, because I think I don't have the year pulled up in front of me, and I'm not going to Google it this time. I think it comes out relatively the same time as like the Atari Pong console, like that very first one. But I think the Odyssey beats it. I think the Odyssey 1 is technically the first video game home console. Not to say that it's good, mind you. Given my review, I've looked at, I'm like, it's not the greatest, but it is worthy of an episode because it's the first. And at least the first competition for Atari, really. Yeah, looking forward to that. And that'll be, the video version will come out this weekend, and then next weekend will be the podcast version of that. And hopefully this time I won't be late on that. And then after that will be Pong. We'll get to Pong. Okay, so sources time. Here's my sources. So, obviously the audio came from the IGN interview, so shout out to IGN. I did get some of the research from Atari's official history page on their website. Wikipedia, of course, for obvious reasons. Not everything's going to be available. PBS, Who Made America, talked about Nolan Bushnell. The History Tools also talked about Nolan Bushnell. NPR's article on Ted Dabney was really helpful. And then obviously the YouTubers, I don't have their information pulled up right now, but I did get the audio of the commercials from YouTube. So shout out to folks that preserve that footage. Things like this, I really appreciate that, and I just appreciate it from a preservationist standpoint, archivist, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that'll do it for this episode. Looking forward to talking about the first Magnavox Odyssey console next episode. And yeah, sorry again I'm late, but it is what it is. So anyway, hope you had a good one, and I will see y'all another time. Peace.